I feel that social media creates different standards for women and the men they date. It seems like there is almost an expectation to have zero tolerance for any shortcomings in a male partner. He doesn't get you flowers often? It's because he doesn't want to. He doesn't dress nicely when you go out together? He doesn't want to. He does something mean or hurtful. It's because he wanted to, and that's how he must always feel. It's like they view men as creatures who aren't capable of complexity or growth, and they want all women to see men in the same light. Otherwise, we will just be dating bad men. Story 1. If it is used to explain why a man is not putting effort into a relationship, it is accurate. If it is used to justify why a woman should not need to communicate in a relationship, it is false. The trouble with many aphorisms is that they quickly become cliches, and from there can easily become thought-terminating cliches. If it is used to end discussion about what is going on, it is no more insightful than just saying, dump him. Story 2. If he liked me, he would ask me out, seems to be accepted by the women who hang out on Reddit. If she liked him, she would ask him out, is met with scorn. It does not work like that, they say. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. If someone wants the other person to do something, you need to communicate that. The same goes for not doing something. I am not a fan of, if he wanted to, he would. I am a fan of speak up and communicate what you want. Just remove the assumptions and say it directly. Story 3. There are two sides to everything. There are definitely clueless, immature men who expect their partner to take care of everything. On the other hand, there are many toxic individuals who expect their partner to be a mind reader or servant. Social media is designed to capture your attention. If you tend to be self-centered, you will watch and like entitled content, so the algorithm will continue to show it to you. The solution is to consciously avoid and downvote provocative content. A relationship is about communication between partners. If a woman has an issue, she should express it clearly and talk to her partner. The same applies to men. Story 4. It does not make me feel anything, but I do think it is not a black and white issue and should be considered on a case-by-case basis. This is a groundbreaking statement, I know. Story 5. I think it is a really good way for women to have an excuse for not being good partners or equally contributing to the relationship. There are many things that I want to do for my fiancé which are not financially or physically viable at the moment, but according to that, I just do not want to or I would. In my experience, men in relationships are almost always doing more than women when it comes to little gestures and being thoughtful. Anytime I have expressed that, it is immediately shut down. The idea that if she wanted to, she would is somehow unfair. I think it is reasonable for you to want your partner to do things that show love, connection, appreciation, or make you feel special, regardless of gender or orientation. I also believe if you want something, then you need to express it. There are things my fiancé found important that I never would have guessed, because for me, they are literally nothing. Story 6. This is why you should not listen to dating coaches on YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram. Secondly, if you believe this, the same can be said about women too. If she wanted to, she would initiate sex. If she wanted to, she would do the things she did for her ex. If she wanted to, she would not just see me as a provider. If she wanted to, she would not prioritize other things over me. But it is never that simple, and yes, your point does stand. Men are just as complex, if not more, than women. However, you always see the dumb memes about how men are simple creatures. Are we? Or does society just label us that way so they do not have to see us as actual human beings with complex emotions, thoughts, needs, and wants? Story 7. If it is applied consistently and fairly, I have no problem with it. What I mean by that is that it applies equally to men and women and to topics that you have directly communicated about with your partner. If either of those things is missing, then it is a problem. Story 8. It's usually a deflection on the part of partners who do not want to put themselves out there, who do not want to clearly ask for what they want and need, who are afraid of rejection when asking, and who do not really know what they want but expect their partners to. If something is important to you, you need to let your partner or partners know that. If that important something is not easy for your partner or partners to do, you need to help create the conditions and learning that will better enable them to provide it. If your partner or partners cannot do it, or you cannot support it enough to make it easy, You need to decide if it is worth ending the relationship over or letting the desire for it go. Relationships are work. They are things you build together. Almost no one has an effortless relationship that lasts. Even the relatively easy ones, where people are closely enough aligned that they do not have to change much to be happy together, still require work. Most of the good ones require harmonious growth and change together. Some of it is doing or being things that make your partner or partners happy. Some of it is communicating things that make you happy. Some of it is letting go of things that cannot readily be done right now. Then continue to do that loop over and over again, doing your best to enjoy life together as you go. As to how it makes me feel kind of crappy, in a certain sense, there are cases where, if he wanted to, he would is a legitimate expression that is accurate. But that is not usually how it is used. Normally, it is a stand-in for, I have a need that I expect my partner to fulfill with little to no effort on my part. Story 9. It is almost impossible not to draw comparisons on social media. People compare themselves with strangers, and they compare their partners with strangers. If one wants to have a fun, healthy, fulfilling relationship, then there needs to be communication. Assuming your partner would, if they wanted to, benefits no one. If you feel your partner prioritizes certain things over you, tell them. Have a conversation. If they bend over backwards for their friends but not for you, tell them. They may not even realize it. Assumptions hurt, and any social media account that isn't just a regular person is creating content to generate views and keep your attention. So when you follow a relationship advice account, just remember that the account needs to continue making content to keep you engaged. It doesn't mean that everything said should be taken literally and applied to your own life. That's how you grow bitter and resentful for things that were not issues before you saw someone on social media tell you how to feel. My 2 cents. Story 10. This phrase makes me feel frustrated about extremism. There are many reasons we did not do it. Forgetfulness, being busy, lack of funds, and being too late are my favorite reasons. Very rarely is it something malicious. Mainstream media and social media have created an illusion of an ideal reality. Everything is dramatized for audience impact. I also feel that women should be spared the stereotypes that often offend men. Men and women should be more empathetic and understanding of their partners. Friends, including ourselves, should help people in relationships communicate better. I get frustrated by it, but I do not think we should retaliate. We should work towards establishing better communication. Story 11. In a perfect world, I would. It is not a perfect world. I cannot do everything I want and everything I need. Story 12. How does the phrase, if he wanted to, he would make you feel? All the complaints about male entitlement that I have heard are just projection. Then I remember that this is social media we are talking about, and hostility sells. So the percentage of women who actually believe that is likely incredibly low. But because outrage and provocation get clicks, it is what rises to the surface. I have recently adopted the mindset that the majority of these discussions are not even being had by real people, but are instead astroturfed by automated accounts to generate outrage. And it feels like I have unlocked a cheat code for peace of mind. Story 13. Answering the top-line question, the problem is that women are applying it as a general rule instead of realizing that it is only pertinent to undesirable men they should not have been dating in the first place. There is no nuance, as if a rule of thumb should apply everywhere and always. It is as if they view men as creatures incapable of complexity or growth, and they want all other women to view men in the same way. Otherwise, they will just be dating undesirable men. I think it is more about avoidance. If it is a general problem with men, then it is not an individual problem with her inability to identify and get a good man. Realizing that she is attracted to undesirable men and dealing with that takes a lot of work that people generally do not want to put in. To be fair, men often have similar issues. Story 14. Accurate outside of some specific contexts. I guess I don't feel anything about it. It's true for all relationships. If someone is not doing something within their power, they probably don't want to do it. If they are doing something within their power, it is likely because they want to do it. You and others can influence that, sure, but at a certain point, it is just not their priority, and it is better to accept that and act reasonably based on that information. That is Do what social media says never to do and actually talk to the person you are in a relationship with. Story 15. I feel that social media creates different standards for women. Society has historically set radically different standards for men and women. However, I have noticed a trend with several women who actively embrace the double standards they hold. For instance, no one is entitled to your labor coming from a woman is perfectly acceptable in the context of a relationship, but they definitely feel men are obligated to perform the bare minimum. It's like they view men as creatures who are not capable of complexity or growth. To be fair, men often portray ourselves this way. We tend to emphasize how simple we are, especially in comparison to women. Yes, many women then go on to caricature this, but it seems worth mentioning. How does the phrase, "if he wanted to, he would," make you feel? This phrase is overly simplistic and dismissive. Here's why it is problematic. It ignores competence. People may want to do things but may not know how. It ignores complexity. People may feel held back by fear, trauma, mental health struggles, or life circumstances. It ignores priorities. You may want to do something, but other things may take precedence. It reinforces binary thinking. Relationships are rarely black and white. This phrase can shut down nuanced conversations. As mentioned above, it rarely works the other way around. For example, try saying, "if she wanted to, she would," in a conversation about a wife having low libido, and see how that works out. Suddenly, there will be a cavalcade of nuance explaining why it is not so simple. That is totally fair, but the double standard becomes apparent. The most misunderstood and overused phrases in women's dating advice today seem to be, "if he wanted to, he would," weaponized incompetence, emotional labor, mental labor, and the bare minimum. Story 16. It is just anti-man propaganda put out there to make women single and miserable. That, combined with the slur "pick me," attacking any pleasant woman who enjoys being kind to men, really takes the mask off. Apply that phrase to women, and you will see their feathers ruffle. She should cook for you if she loves you. She should have sex with you when you want if she loves you. She should clean the house for you if she loves you. See how wildly offensive that is if you apply it to women. Story 17. The cultural expectation that men must be the caretakers of women does not sit well with me. The idea that if a man does not woo a woman every day, he is a bad man, but the same is not expected of women. Story 18. I think it's nonsense intended to control men who have commitments outside of their relationships. If I am committed to a woman and what we are building, most of the time I have to sacrifice what I want now for what I want later. The phrase, "if he wanted to, he would," reflects a narcissistic view that a romantic partner should take priority over everything else. I understand the sentiment is to teach people to avoid liars and manipulative speakers, but it comes across as an incredibly toxic way to test if someone loves you. Story 19. I think that it is somewhat applicable when it comes to relational and emotional issues, but not to financial ones. If he wanted to acknowledge your feelings, treat you more kindly, and have the tough conversations, he would. But sometimes a Birkin bag is just out of reach. Story 20. Ignore social media. Just ignore it and do your own thing. Who cares what society thinks? Be yourself and date who you want. Be happy. Story 21. It can cut both ways. For me, I think the phrase is relevant in the early stages. Think you are in the talking, hooking up, or situationship stage. If he wants to commit, he would. But after that, both parties have an obligation to be adults and discuss their needs and wants. That is the difference between a princess and a queen. Story 22. Dating based on a random, insufferable Instagram post is foolish. Any woman who uses it to complain about something I have or have not done would cause me to lose all respect for her. Story 23. You have expressed that well. Social media increasingly fosters socially acceptable toxicity in various forms. If he wanted to, he would is just one example of many horrifyingly foolish expressions people live by. Story 24. It reminds me of how much some people, because it is not just women, overcomplicate life. It is not that difficult. Stop making things that can be scheduled require on-demand, immediate responses. Story 25. There are a lot of things I want to do, but there are also many things I don't do. Time, energy, social standards. There are many factors that decide whether I do what I want or not. For example, I am tempted to scoop my woman up bridal style and start shouting, "This is all mine," just to show her off. Do I actually do it? No. Chances are it would embarrass her, and I feel the need to ask for consent before I do it. However, I feel like asking for consent kind of ruins the moment. This is just an example. Story 26. Social media is not the real world, and I think most women understand this. The phrase, "if he wanted to, he would," is generally true. However, I believe most women understand that they still have to use their words like adults and state their desires and boundaries. Story 27. I had not heard that one for a while, so I was hoping it had died off and the trend chasers had moved on to something else. Dang. Story 28. Get off social media. Spend time outdoors. Do not follow what everyone, also known as poor quality influencers, tells you to do. Think for yourself. Story 29. For me, it is true. I have gone over and beyond for some women and also been too comfortable with the ones that loved me most. This is also part of the reason why I am in the process of a divorce. Story 30. Comparison is the thief of joy. Too many women let their past negative experiences affect present moments. Are there lazy, homebodied men who do nothing for you but will change for the right one? Yes. Are all lazy, homebodied men like this? No. I am a very homebodied man who enjoys going out occasionally and falls in love very deeply. I need my partner to express when they feel underappreciated. Otherwise, it is business as usual for me. Story 31. It is nonsense. It is a double standard. Men are expected to put in much more effort than women in almost every phase of the relationship. It is not always possible. For example, my wife is a teacher, which means she basically cannot use her phone during the daytime, Monday through Friday. If, when we were dating, I had said, if she wanted to text me, she would, but she does not, so she is not interested, that would be clearly incorrect. She cannot take out her phone and start texting me during the lesson. It is not always possible to do these things. Story 32. Every time I hear the phrase, "if he wanted to, he would," all I can think is he used to. He used to do all that until he realized it does not matter. Story 33. It is not a very useful phrase. For one thing, how many decades of "do not approach" at all is it working against? Story 34. I think it is true but also overstates what is happening. There is a responsibility to tell your partner what you want and do not want. If they continue not doing it after you bring it up, that is a whole different story. I do not buy flowers for my girlfriend often, but she does not buy flowers for me either. If she told me she wanted flowers, I would start buying her flowers more often. Story 35. I assume people saying this either are not very aware of themselves or have exceptional discipline to always do what they want. The number of things in my life I want but do not do is staggering. Maybe it relates to the fact I have been in and out of depression for most of my adult life, but I do not understand how people actually do what they want regularly, especially the detailed side of getting things done. Story 36. I think you have misunderstood the point of the phrase. The "if he wanted to, he would" is used to explain situations like, if he has not called, if he has not asked you out, if he has not made an effort, it is because he is just not interested in you. If he wanted a relationship with you, he would. Story 37. It makes me feel sad. It is a very woman-centric point of view, where women are to be pursued and desired but oddly have no agency. I think that when you are dating or even just establishing an interest in dating, it is give and take. I will not ask someone out unless they show me that they will be receptive. If she is at the point where she would like to go out, why does she not ask? Story 38. In common sense practice, I have no issue with it. Many women, especially younger ones, have a hard time learning to accept their partners as they are. They often see men as projects to change or focus on potential future outcomes. This is why many men unintentionally get into toxic dynamics. Some women believe that throwing temper tantrums, pushing boundaries, giving unsolicited advice, and stressing themselves out to deliver what is not needed will achieve the results they want. Accepting people with the mindset of, if they wanted to, Can help women make better decisions about what they want in relationships and when to leave if it is not aligned with who they are. As for women online using it to be selfish, unrealistic, and unwilling to compromise, it means nothing to me. The emptiest barrels make the loudest noise and tend to compromise more than anyone else. Story 39. I think it is absolutely true. If men wanted to do these things, they would. The problem is that the thought stops there. No one ever asks why a man would want to do these things. It is just assumed that there are good things that men should do, but we never ask what incentives or rewards he gets for doing them and why he would want these things. There is a woman relationship influencer I encountered on Facebook who said, "Men are told how to treat a woman, but not what they should expect from her. Women are told what to expect from a man, but not how to treat him." I think that is true, and it creates an unhealthy dynamic where both sides are unfulfilled in relationships. I think we are in a transition period right now where we have all realized the old ways do not work for everyone, but we do not yet have a new structure for teaching people how to be in a relationship and respond to individual needs rather than just try to force them into the mold of man and woman. Story 40. I think in many ways it gets misused, but that applies to anything in human nature. With the right grounding, I see it as a good message and reminder to accept nothing less so that the standards are raised for all humans to be good, kind, and worthwhile. I am okay with natural selection doing its thing. That being said, it is a two-way street and everyone must make themselves worthwhile. I also believe it must be grounded in love and realistic expectations such as money and time. That is where finding a good partner comes in, someone who demands the best from you, but not solely for their own benefit. I think selfishness and rationality are the crossroads where I see the distortion of this statement. All other aspects are acceptable to me. Story 41. My boyfriend and I love each other deeply, but we both have very limited social energy. We do not spend a lot of time together. We mostly just take care of the basics for each other, and we are very relaxed in our relationship. When we go on a date or give each other gifts, it means much more. This is what works for us. The saying, "If he wanted to, he would," does not apply in our relationship. The phrase itself reflects insecurity. If I could not feel loved without someone randomly catering to me, I would need much more therapy than I am currently receiving. I could not date someone who had unknown expectations of me either. I am too autistic, and that would make me very anxious around them. I do not care what my partner wants to do most of the time. I know he loves me even if he does not say it. Story 42. Too black and white does not apply to all variables that exist in individual human brains and does not always represent the dynamic between two people. Said as a woman, female, or lady, whichever is acceptable for me to be called. Story 43. You are setting the bar too high. Everything you ask for, you receive. This should already be satisfactory, but you want even more. Story 44. Until you are willing to understand that there are external forces attempting to influence relationships in Western democracies to their detriment, none of this will make sense. The West is being fed nonsense that makes absolute perfection the only acceptable condition in which to enter a relationship. Story 45. On a micro level, it applies to some situations but often ignores a person's own capacity and needs. On a macro level, it is a psychological operation meant to keep men and women arguing with each other. Rise above. Spend time outdoors. Story 46. 1. It is not literally true that we all want to do many things we do not actually do. We also do many things we do not want to do. There is a concept called asking for what you want, and you would be surprised how often it works. It sometimes feels like an excuse for women to avoid communicating. Story 47. All I hear is someone pouting that they did not get what they want and are trying to manipulate their way there. That is what the phrase screams to me. Story 48. I mean, if I did not buy you flowers, it is because I did not want to. What is the other option? That I wanted to buy them but could not afford them. Story 49. My efforts need to be matched. Otherwise, I am not going to do all the work. If she wanted to, she would match my interest with effort. Story 50. Cop out. It is like overthinking enough to say something that makes sense but cannot be backed up enough to mean something tangible. Story 51. Most mainstream social media platforms cater to women because they are more likely to spend money on the products being advertised. Men tend to prefer niche communities. Story 52. I can support the argument that if you value something, have communicated that, and are consistently not receiving it, you should not expect that to change and should evaluate your options accordingly. That being said, the communication part of this process is very important, as is considering whether giving up what you are receiving is worth pursuing what you are not. This applies in both directions. Story 53. Binaries with no context make decisions easy. Relationships and humans in general are complicated, so people will latch onto anything that makes understanding simple. I think there are cases where it can be true, and also situations where it is not that black and white. Story 54. I want to be asleep, but I am not. Clearly, it is an oversimplification of something else someone is trying to say, like they want someone to put in effort and care. It is not that hard. Story 55. I feel this is a toxic statement of projection. It enters the mind-reader territory and creates negative and manufactured drama, resulting in confusion and frustration. Be an adult and talk about your needs. Also, take time to understand the difference between a need and a want. Story 56. Because many people online, both men and women, are antisocial, lack real relationships, may have had negative experiences, feel jealous or angry, and want to bring others down as well. Misery loves company, as the saying goes. Story 57. I think it's dumb. I see it in subtitles a lot, especially venting posts from women about their partner not instinctively buying them flowers on a random Tuesday, and things like that. It is also sometimes used to justify this odd notion that men are supposed to be mind readers, or statements like, if he loved me, he would have proposed to me by now. Girl, you are just as capable of proposing as he is. If you want marriage, make the move. If you want to date someone, make the move. I am going to start reversing the phrase. If she wanted to, she would. Story 58. When the message about something skews to one side, it is because of a reality or a perception that the world is skewed the other way and needs correcting. In this case, the reality or perception is that women have a hard time demanding good treatment from men. How that gets expressed online is influenced by the fact that the people who are good at getting attention on the internet are not average people. They are more assertive, more entitled, and more fearless. So the women who are stepping up to provide this in-demand message about demanding better treatment from men are not the women who are getting shortchanged by men. When they deliver the message, it is over the top. Comes out exaggerated and unrealistic. They are screaming, that man better buy you that diamond bracelet, because that is what raising their standards means to them, but the demand for the message is from people who do not feel comfortable asking for what they deserve. It is not that different from a shy Jewish kid named Jerry Siegel creating a comic book character with godlike powers. Superman was a character with exaggerated and unrealistic powers, created for people who struggled to stand up for themselves. Of course, every message gets received by people who need it and people who definitely do not. I am sure right now there are a bunch of overly entitled women watching videos about how they are entitled to even more, just like right now there are fascist bullies bench pressing in Superman t-shirts with zero sense of irony. Story 59. You people make us millennials feel like baby boomers. It is like we are the last generation to not have our lives controlled by social media. You come here with social viewpoints, with a stereotypical social media take, and complain about social media pressures. You young people are doing this to yourselves. Story 60. Comparison is the thief of joy. Girls have been saying, if he wanted to, for decades. It is why I always loathe when my girl gets back from a girls' trip. They start talking and comparing relationships, which has literally started arguments in my past. How does it make me feel? Not good enough, which sucks when it feels like you are trying your hardest. Story 61. I want to fly like a superhero. I guess I did not want it enough. I want to be a billionaire. I think there is another way to interpret this. If you deserved it, you would get it. If you wanted me to, you would inspire me to. Story 62. It's somewhat true. If I wanted to date, I would. I'm not actively looking because I haven't found anyone special enough to make the effort worthwhile. I'd rather focus on my child, my hobbies, my work, and so on. That's the part some women overlook. They're competing with everything else going on in life. Yes, your partner should be kind to you, but you should have sane expectations considering everything else happening in their life. I do understand. I'd rather not date than date someone who isn't worth it. If you want high maintenance, just be upfront that you're high maintenance and explain what you give in return that makes up for the high maintenance cost and time. If you want low maintenance, use that as a selling point. If you want stalker level maintenance, go for that. People who expect their partner to have extrasensory perception rather than communicate are the root issue. Story 63. I think it is just different and more lenient than you describe. If I wanted to dress nicely for an event, I would. I wasn't even thinking about what I was wearing as long as it wasn't dirty, and the clothes matched and fit well enough. Nice or not. I didn't get flowers? No, I really just wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't that I didn't want to. It simply didn't cross my mind. I wanted to get home after a long workday or week, not stop at the flower shop. Did I say something inappropriate? Yes, I was probably just caught up in the moment. I think about it sometimes, but how I really feel is that I don't even know why we are arguing. I just want to relax. Nothing is that deep or maddening unless we were going to break up afterward. At the same time, I could present fair counterpoints to all of these, ranging from, if she didn't do this, she didn't want to you aren't seeing any other perspective than your own. Story 64. I think that it is messaging that will have women shooting themselves in the foot. It is messaging for an echo chamber of women who will end up miserable and likely lonely. It is right up there with women wanting a man taller than 6 feet who makes six figures and has more than 6 inches, without noticing how few men that results in. There are plenty of good women who do not believe this garbage, and they are going to have many good options, while the women if they wanted to, they would echo chamber and the 666 echo chamber are going to run out of options. There are not enough tall men who earn a high income, have the length, and match these standards. On the flip side, as a man who is looking for a chill woman who can joke sarcastically and tease me back, I have a global dating pool and do not have a clock that runs out in my early 40s. Story 65. It is a false narrative and an easy, shallow response to paint someone as not putting forth effort. Sometimes what we want to do is not the right thing or not possible in that moment. A better approach is to have an open dialogue where there is discussion and an honest attempt to understand each other. Statements like the one in the question are not constructive ways to deal with hurt feelings in a relationship. Story 66. Every person is different. When people stress and argue over superficial nonsense, they lash out on social media. Complaining that my partner shouldn't do this or that is why people start to question their relationships. Maybe the person is broke and can't afford certain things. Maybe they are stressed about something, and their thoughtfulness is lacking because of it. Talk to your partner before you jump to silly conclusions or scenarios. Don't assume something is true just because someone upset on the internet posted it. Story 67. I could say the same about my girlfriend and women. She treats me amazingly because she wants to, and I would not date someone who did not make me feel loved like she does. Story 68. It is silly at best and toxic at worst. It works both ways. If she wants to talk to him, she would call or text him. If she wants to date a guy, she would ask him out. That kind of thinking is silly and removes agency and responsibility. Story 69. Some things you just have to ignore. The only thing that matters in a relationship is what you and your partner agree on. Have discussions if you or your partner feel like one is not putting in effort. A relationship is individual. If your partner thinks this way, it is better to talk to them about it rather than worrying about what some internet relationship influencers think. They are motivated to create drama and engagement. It is easier to tune out this noise. Story 70. Social media has become a marketing vehicle aimed primarily at women. It is selling them everything it can, including dreams and fantasies. Simply put, they are being deceived for money, and their expectations are irrational. The phrase is intended to help women avoid taking any responsibility. Story 71. It is toxic and encourages passive girls to stay passive. It also promotes making a movie in your head about a situation instead of talking with the concerned people. If someone uses that sentence, I will assume that person is unintelligent. Yes, I feel like tolerance for any kind of insecurity or doubt is always punished and put on the man's back for not doing something. One of my favorite examples is always when it comes to sex. Women are allowed to not cater to the tastes of their partner, to avoid certain things because she is not into it, it's a turn off, or she is insecure about it. Give her a pass or help her. But when a man does not cater to what a woman wants, it is labeled a red flag. He shouldn't be insecure about X. He should totally do X even if he does not like it. Or he is a bad person for not liking X. Society tries so much to empower women from a dating or sex point of view that it feels like they have all the power, and men have to do all the work to get and keep women. Story 72. It is a double standard because I cannot imagine a man openly saying, if she wanted to, she would. Story 73. I just laugh. Can you imagine if every man started to touch women's chests and asses as often as they have the thought? I know that there is someone out there who really doesn't care about what the other person wants and just does whatever he wants, but it's so divorced from my experience that I find it funny. Try applying those words to your actions. Are you always doing everything you want? I mean, couldn't you? Hopefully, that's the last time you make such an assumption about us being fully divorced from the consequences of our actions, as if we are immune to wanting to be liked and cared about. Story 74. Like someone who holds double standards. There are things you do even when you don't want to, such as eat your vegetables, call and schedule a doctor's appointment, or go to work. And there are things you want to do but don't, for one reason or another, such as travel the world, buy a house, or slim your waist. Motivation and desire are only one piece of the multivariate equation that determines whether we do something or not. It may be rude to say, but people who follow the idea, if he wanted to, he would, are mentally incapable of thinking about more than one variable at a time, always a black and white, if X then Y. Story 75. It hurts. My experience might be different from others, though. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so doing things is not always as easy as it sounds. There are many things I want to do for myself or others that I cannot do depending on my energy levels, mood, sleep, medication, and so on. It hurts when people think I am making a conscious choice to forget or neglect them. That said, I am not sure this thought is expressed much outside of internet spaces and the group chat. Story 76. If a woman wanted to perform oral sex, she would. People in glass houses should not throw stones, but here we are. The modern woman who repeats this nonsense is the reason I and most men stay single. We do not want to deal with additional drama. Not all women are like this, but many are. The entry standards are very high for women who bring below average qualities to a relationship but demand to be treated as if they are God's gift to man. Okay, done ranting. Story 77. In my past situations, that phrase has been relevant. I'm sure it is in other women's situations too, and some women who use it shouldn't, and some men could use it as well. I think you're misreading the phrase as a statement about all men when it's really relevant for specific situations. For me, it's been like this. I say, if he wanted to, he would, about things I do for him that he doesn't reciprocate. For example, I get him treats he likes from the store very frequently as a surprise because I want to. He doesn't surprise me with flowers. If he wanted to, he would. I dress up nicely for dates because I want to, but he doesn't put in that effort. If he wanted to, he would. I compliment him out of the blue because I like to, but he doesn't do the same for me. If he wanted to, he would. The phrase isn't about men being incapable of growth. In fact, it offers the opportunity for growth in the area of intentionality. I used it to make a point in an early argument with my current boyfriend, and he was able to grow by understanding the intentionality it illustrated. Being intentional for your partner isn't about magical thoughts popping into your head. It's about wanting them to know they're loved, so you make a point of doing the things they love. Story 78. I dislike the expectation that men must follow a schedule to give flowers to a woman for her to feel appreciated. In one of my long-term relationships, near the end, she demanded flowers every week to prove I cared. I find this toxic when it becomes a demand for something nice to have but not a necessity. Dressing well should be something a man does for himself because he wants to look good, not to serve as an accessory for someone else. If a woman notices a man who does not care about his appearance, she should choose to be with someone who does. Saying, I had to help him dress, as an excuse is a slippery slope toward becoming their caretaker. It is acceptable to offer input on style and suggest improvements, but outright changing whether they dress well or not is a significant difference. Saying something mean or hurtful is a broad statement. Sometimes the speaker's intention and understanding do not match what the listener wanted to hear. They may say something without malicious intent, but that still requires clarification and communication. Incapability of growth depends on the individual, not just men. If a person lacks a growth mindset, they remain comfortable being stuck. If growth is important to the other person, this will cause problems. Story 79. It is valid to an extent, but it is mostly used as a double standard or to justify a ridiculous level of entitlement and narcissism. You never see anyone say, "If she wanted to, she would." But we should all remind ourselves of this more often and have respect for ourselves. Story 80. They are right. So now what? Oh, nothing. That's what. If the guy is attractive enough, strong enough, tall enough, or has enough money, they give it up. They tell their girlfriends what they wouldn't tolerate while putting up with worse from a guy that they won't even tell their girlfriends about because he wants to maintain his privacy. Story 81. I have always thought that certain women, typically left-leaning, view men as broken women. They have deluded themselves into thinking that their lifestyle, their choices, and their moral compasses are always right, and that men just got derailed at some point. Story 82. I applied it back toward women and realized that I have absolutely no desire to be with the vast majority of them. Story 83. It is one of the least offensive things women say. Women are often compelled to insult, belittle, attack, accuse, and blame men relentlessly. It is all day, every day. It is like you cannot speak without the temptation to emotionally abuse men. It is strange how hateful some people can be. They never stop. They never stop insulting men. Leave us alone. Story 84. The thing is, I agree with the statement. It annoys me because, if she wanted to, she would does not seem to matter. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.